Have you ever looked like you had it all together on the outside while quietly unraveling on the inside? Well, because let's be honest, a lot of women in midlife have gotten really, really, really good at wearing that mask. We show up, we perform, we lead, and hold everything together. However, underneath the success, the productivity, and the polished exterior, there can be anxiety, burnout, self doubt, and old emotional wounds that we've never fully dealt with. Eventually, that mask gets very heavy and difficult to wear. And that's exactly why I'm so excited for today's conversation. My guest today is Lisa Skeffington, a multi award winning psychotherapist and self esteem expert who helps high achieving women in leadership break free from high functioning anxiety, imposter syndrome, burnout, and the silent emotional wounds that are driving it all. So, what makes her work so powerful is that it is not just professional, it's also deeply personal. Lisa has walked her own path through trauma, healing, and reclaiming her truth, and now she helps women remove the mask, heal emotional wounds, and step fully into their personal and professional power. In this episode, we're talking about why so many women overfunction, overgive, overperform, and what emotional resilience actually means, and why midlife is not a breakdown. It's often the moment when the truth finally asks to be heard. So, if you've ever felt like you were succeeding loudly while quietly abandoning yourself, this episode is for you. So, let's get into it. You're listening to Midlife Strategies for Badass Women, the no BS podcast for women over 40 who are sick of playing by someone else's rules. I'm your host, Sue Willoughby, badass midlife strategist, truth teller, and professional fire starter for midlife reinvention. Around here, we don't do fluff. We do real talk, bold strategies, and badass breakthroughs. Because midlife isn't a crisis, it's your damn power move. If you're all in, unapologetic, and ready to reinvent, let's get started. Hello, lovely listeners. Welcome back to another amazing episode of Midlife Strategies for Badass Women. As I mentioned in the introduction, my guest today is Lisa Skeffington, and she is coming to us from across the pond. Like way across the pond. So I'm really excited to have her here today. We're going to hit on some amazing topics. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sue. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Yay! Well,
Wow.
today we're going to talk about something that is very prevalent in, I think, today's society in general, but more specifically with midlife women. And we're talking about anxiety and how that affects us, how we mask it, and I'd like to know a little bit more about your work in this area and maybe kind of how you came to focusing on this specific topic.
Yeah, surely. Okay. Um, so I've been doing this work for, nearly 30 years now. Long time. I've been a successful entrepreneurial woman myself. Obviously, during that time, I've raised a family. I have two amazing grown-up kids. I've seen myself through a 25-year marriage to exit um, well as a good decision to recreate sort of and strengthen who I am and to really live a very happy, comfortable, empowered life in the truth of who I am. And this is what I want for every single woman. So, I've been working in the anxiety field for a very long time, helping families with dysfunction for a very long time, helping women struggling to communicate in their relationships for a very long time. And I've really niched into female leaders actually really channeling into this imposter syndrome, this relentless burnout, this just feeling not good enough underneath this facade of outward success for a good 10 years now.
Mm.
because I saw that in myself. When I was, oh gosh, I mean, in my 20s, long time ago now. I'm nearly 60, 60 next year, actually. Phenomenal.
Welcome to the
um,
club.
yeah, thank you. I'm quite excited actually to be turning that, because every chapter, every next decade brings new challenges and new excitement and new adventure, isn't it, as well? So we've got to
It does.
embrace it, haven't we?
Absolutely.
So when I was in my 20s, I was wearing a mask from my childhood, from the effects of wounding in my childhood. And I kind of got out of a difficult childhood, let's say, and thought, well, you know what? If I could get out of that, I can do anything. And so my confidence seemed to be very high. But what I didn't realize then, because I was only in my early 20s, um, that really it was superficial, it wasn't real. And I was, purporting to be super confident in who I was, but I really wasn't. And one day a manager said to me in investment banking, he said to me, Lisa, the only problem with your confidence is that it's a long way to fall. And he said it with
Wow.
such venom. Yeah. And I thought, goodness, this mask that I'm wearing, it's not actually working, and it's alienating people. It's alienating me, from the people I'm trying to impress. I'm trying to, be noticed by, to be, being ambitious, to want to grow. And that kind of began to sow the seed for me. And I think I picked that up probably again really deeply through my, dynamic psychotherapy work. Probably about around 10 years ago now, I'd say. Yeah, and I've helped some phenomenal, successful women in the public eye, in business, in leadership, to really just take off that mask, to fully remove it and live authentically. Not just live, but thrive as the woman they were always meant to be. And it's a great feeling to watch that happen for them, to watch them find those resources within themselves, because I'm just a facilitator. I don't do it for them. I just show them how to fly, really. And it's beautiful to help successful women who seem to be very successful on the outside, who are secretly, maybe crying at night or tossing and turning at night, trying desperately to keep that train on the tracks for one more day, to keep all those plates spinning, to keep everyone in their life happy, when it just seems an impossible task.
Yeah. I hear that. And I hear it a lot with my clients as well. And some of the things that you were mentioning about the mask and dying inside and trying to keep up this facade is I work with horses in my coaching practice.
Oh,
And
amazing.
when you said I'm just the facilitator, that's the same role that I play
Mm,
when my clients are working with the horses, because the horses see right through all of that, and because they can sense from what's inside of us, from our heart rate and from all of every biorhythm that we have going on. They're like huge sensing meters, because that's just how they operate, as a prey animal, a large prey animal. But when you were talking about that, I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what the horses do. Uh, is that they see right through it, and they provide and hold a safe space for people to drop that mask and discover who they really are. So a lot of similarities around that.
mm.
Um,
Do you know, that's
and
fascinating that you say that?
mm,
Fascinating, because I used to have horses when I was younger, and I have a
ah,
great affinity to horses, and I totally get what you're saying. My horse, he could tell as I walked towards his paddock, he knew
mhm,
my feeling. He
yeah,
could read me so well as a teenager. He could tell whether it was a
yeah,
good day or a bad day, and he knew how to respond to me. So to hear that you work with horses is just mind blowing for me. It really gets me right here. It's just
yeah.
such a wonderful thing to hear, because horses are such incredible healing vehicles, aren't
They
they?
are,
Their
and
soul is huge.
their hearts are huge,
Mm,
and when you can connect with them on a very heart-centered level, and that's what happens, and once that mask kind of starts to melt away, They're like, "Okay," because they're just trying to assess. They're taking everything in as information, which is really great because being around them, sorry, we're taking a little diversion here, but being around them allows us to understand that we can do the same thing, that it's just information. We need to process it. We come back into our bodies. And
This is so on point, isn't it? Because,
yeah.
horses show us that it is about connection and trust.
Hmm.
It's about, isn't it? It's about that deep ability to actually see the real person.
Yeah.
And so many successful women wear a mask believing that they can't be seen. And sometimes they're right, sometimes they can't be seen. But what happens is you never really then get to be seen, because if you're not being real,
Yep.
there's tremendous emotional isolation because the person that people see is really you.
No.
And
So,
a horse has the ability to completely see through a mask
hmm,
because they
it's
channel that connection, that energy, don't they? They see it, they feel it. And
absolutely,
we need to do
absolutely.
the same as humans.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a great experience to have them right there when you've got a 1,200-pound animal staring you in the face or ignoring you because you're not being real.
Yep,
Then you're like, what is going on here? And they teach so much about leadership and relationship, how you're showing up in the world.
totally,
I think you
totally.
need to start working with horses. Maybe I need to move closer to you, and we'll bring the horses
I
into the
think this
mix.
sounds like a fabulous possible collaboration.
Why do you think women as a whole, especially middle-aged women, how
Mm.
do we get into this trap of wearing a mask and taking care of everyone else before we take care of ourselves and just not letting that facade crack? How do we get there in the first place?
I think it's a lot to do. Well, I know it's a lot to do with emotional wounding.
Mm,
In a woman's psyche, when we are wounded, when we are criticized, when we don't feel good enough, what do? We try harder. We push beyond. Whereas, without gender stereotyping too much, typically a
it's
man,
okay.
he will withdraw. He'll say,
Mm.
well, you do it then. But
Oh,
us
interesting.
women, we then will push forward. And that's why we become successful. We become successful often in spite of difficulty, not because of it.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, that's
Mm.
interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way because
Ooh.
I think of it as the opposite, where women withdraw or they go inside themselves and they play small or they get small, or as men kind of push their way through and be like, "Pfft," you know. So
Right.
it's
So
interesting that you
that's,
say that.
yeah. Interest. Okay. So let me clarify.
Yeah.
So, yes, women do shrink.
Mm.
Okay. They shrink, they doubt themselves emotionally, but then physically, they will start to push and start
Uh,
to do more, to be more, to try to, and this comes up as over pleasing, over delivering, over giving, over sharing, because they're trying to be enough. They're
hmm.
trying to get that love that on some level, in some way, they felt starved from.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
difference. That's the
Yeah,
difference.
that makes sense.
It's not like, a kind of an arrogance or an aggression of pushing through. It's that desperate need, deep down, buried deep down, to be seen, to be heard, to be validated.
Yeah.
And that produces this over functioning. So much anxiety for, very high performing women, let's say, don't like the idea of having anxiety because
Nobody does. It's
it's perceived,
exhausting.
yeah, and it's perceived as a weakness. Certainly in the UK, this British stiff upper lip. Oh, don't get me started. But so really, anxiety gets masked as ambition, as drive, when really there's a doubt in there, there's a fear in there. And this just keeps getting pushed down and pushed down. What happens is, naturally, through various hormonal shifts, whether it's, you know, postnatal, whether it's, perimenopause, postmenopause, it becomes the tipping point, the hormonal shift becomes the tipping point. So many women feel that the menopause causes anxiety, that it causes depression, it causes a lack of confidence. It doesn't, it's a myth. What it does is bring out the wounding that's been pushed down for so long that the woman has tried to fight beyond, to push
Mhm.
beyond. And the tipping point means that you can't keep it down any longer. So, really, the midlife isn't a breakdown, if you like, it's a truth teller moment. It's
Mhm.
that tap on the shoulder saying, listen to me,
Yeah.
get yourself in balance, get the help, get the support, get the love that you deserve.
Exactly, and it's I think it's hard to admit that that's what we've been doing, that we
Mhm,
have been pushing all these things down because, like you said, we've achieved a certain level of success and we have, raised a family. Well, not me personally, I don't have any children, but, or I've reached a certain level of my corporate career or my entrepreneurship or whatever. So, how could I possibly be dysfunctional on some level? Even though,
mm,
like you said, there's so much
mm.
stuff happening on the inside that the horses can see, that we don't want to admit to because, like you said, it would make us look weak. It would make us look unsuccessful. It would like
Mm,
take away all of those things that we've achieved,
mm.
and we would
Absolutely.
be stripped bare and
Mm.
cowering in the
Yeah,
corner.
yeah.
So how do you go about working with women to address these issues and get them to come back into themselves?
Good question. So I'd say first, it's about helping them to realize that this tipping point, which we all have as women,
Mhm.
means that the coping strategies they may have used their entire life are now beginning to fail them because the body, the mind doesn't respond in the same way anymore. Now, things have shifted. It's this midlife shift. And circumstances change as well, don't they? Kids, if you have them, they leave home.
Yeah.
Relationships, often evolve, sometimes end,
Mhm.
with this sort of, desire for more, with this realization of life moving forward, of actually feeling deserving to be happy, wanting to be happy, truly happy, to seek that out. If you've been in a marriage for a long time that's become stale, that's become complacent, if people aren't willing to communicate, it can be a natural end where it
Mhm.
is time to shift. I mean, how many times do you hear, "Oh, we just drifted apart"?
Yeah.
It's where life took over, careers took over, communication stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, career shifts, don't they? Careers can shift rather. We can have, um, again, when we're younger, when we're pushing with the mask, this ambition is rewarded. We get promotions. But again, when we hit that tipping point, we begin to question, do I really want this? Isn't there more to life? Do I want to travel? Do I want deeper quality relationships? Do I want better working days? So the old way of living, the old way of functioning begins to not work. So the first thing is helping women to come to terms with that, to realize that there is more. You can have more. And it's helping them through this to look at a loss of identity, to identify, let's say, a
Right.
loss of identity, a loss of control, to understand that emotional backlog, those unprocessed wounds as they rise up, and really looking at that the idea that this, I've got it all together. I've got the train on the tracks, as we say in the UK. Don't know if you use
Right.
that expression in the US, but we
Yeah.
use it here a lot. Um, that intensifies the mask because if I've been wearing this mask for so long, how on earth am I ever going to take this off?
Yeah.
And that's where you need excellent support to do that
Yeah.
because you can, and the ceiling won't fall down.
Surprisingly enough.
Yeah.
And I love that you talked about that, we start to question those things, but we don't give ourselves permission to actually do anything about it. Like
Hmm.
like you said, like when I hit my wall in corporate America, I'm like, I have had enough.
Mm.
And I have been when I grew up just trying all kinds of new things. Like, I've done a lot of things, but we don't have time to talk about that right now. But I've
Mm,
always just kind of pursued things because of the way I grew up. I never knew what my comfort zone was discomfort. I grew up with an alcoholic
mm,
parent, and
okay.
so I never knew what I was gonna get, and so
Mm,
that in some ways and it gave me the opportunity to have some weird false sense of bravado to go out and
mhm.
try a lot of crazy things. So when
Yeah.
I got to that point in my corporate career, I'm like, I can't do this any longer.
Mm,
And I left and went into real estate. And that was kind of a big shift for me. And then I'm like, I'm still a licensed real estate agent, but things evolve. So I've always kind of learned to let them evolve and give myself permission to do that. It's
sure.
really difficult, I think, to get that permission slip signed to be able to even think about moving forward. Like you said, we get so attached to our identity
Mm,
as a corporate exec.
absolutely. That's the minefield. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's being held safely in a process that allows you to explore that. That doesn't have to take lots of time. I've created through my experience over years and years, I've looked at, what works, what doesn't work, the most efficient ways of working using a whole range of blended psychological therapies that hold people exactly where they are. And, the old way, the traditional, conventional way, let's say, of therapy is over a long period of time. And it really doesn't have to be. I run coastal escapes in the UK where people fly in from all over the world. They spend a weekend with me. They can come with pain. They can come with, real, discomfort, physical discomfort within themselves, emotionally bereft. And they leave feeling refreshed, re energized, clearer within themselves, certainly more confident within themselves. So it really doesn't have to take a long time at all. I work with people all over the world in between, a 3 week and a 12-week program that again allows them very specifically, very strategically to identify the blocks for them, to identify how they're getting in their own way, believing that they still need to wear that mask in order to thrive in their life, where they can actually take it off and be real with themselves and therefore real with people around them in their professional life and in their personal life. It's a really beautiful thing to be a part of.
All right. So we were talking about how you work with women and how quickly that it is not a slow process, that it can happen very quickly depending on the person.
Mm.
What about emotional resilience? What can you tell me about that? I mean, because that's a kind of a term that we hear a lot, but what does it even really mean?
Well, we hear, don't we, that we need to be more resilient, that we need to bounce back more. We need to be able to get over things, to put up with stuff, to be able to push through. And so many women, particularly successful women, are really trying to work hard these days at being emotionally resilient without really knowing what it actually means, I guess, other than the superficial understanding of it.
Yeah.
So let me maybe add a little bit of understanding for your listeners for what that might mean. So, emotional resilience, when we're talking about emotional resilience, we're really talking about not being calm all the time. Again, that's a myth, isn't it? If we're
Yeah.
resilient, we're on it. We're in control.
Yeah.
And we are emotional beings. We're not going to be on it and in control and calm all the time. So it's acknowledging that we don't have to be that way. And it's also not avoiding difficult emotions. Again, it's easy to make emotion forbidden when we're trying to push through, when we're trying to be successful, having this mask of outward success when inside we're really struggling. We fear that we can't be angry or we can't be anxious or we can't be having a bit of a wobble one day. We can't be tearful. We've got to keep it all together. When really emotional resilience in truth is feeling your emotion without being hijacked by them. So allowing them to be there, not making them forbidden. Goodness, not making them forbidden. Staying internally steady when life isn't. And that's a real skill, isn't it? And there's a lot we can learn about that. We can learn very much to regulate our nervous system whilst delivering, whilst performing. But it's a skill that we have to learn.
Mm,
And
definitely.
one of those little things, let's say, could be responding instead of reacting. How do we do that? We can pause. Pause. Allow yourself a 3-second pause before you react, before you respond, and you'll respond better. You won't react so easily. So resilience is really about this emotional steadiness, isn't it? That's what we're talking about, not emotional suppression. Because we're emotional creatures. We want to feel our emotion. We want to live in our emotion and celebrate, the feminine power that emotion brings us.
Yeah, and I talk about that a lot in terms of equanimity and finding, like you said, that calm center, um, to be able to take that pause and
Mm,
unapologetically take it so that you
yeah.
can not just react, but your reaction will be and like you said, it's a genuine you
Mm,
want to be more genuine with your emotions. If you're upset, it's okay to be upset. Once again, giving yourself permission to do that. So I do. I actually have a tattoo that says equanimity on it, just as a little reminder for myself that
love that. That's great.
oh my gosh. So yeah, I think that is a tough one. And I used to be very reactive and just, because
Mm,
it was a defense mechanism, it was a
mm,
protection.
mm.
Um,
Me
if I
too.
react in a way, right? If I react, I
Yeah.
don't have to, "Ugh," and just push people
Mm,
away, and then I don't
yeah.
have to
It's a
worry about it.
shield, isn't it, that comes up,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's just conditioning, like,
Mhm,
how we're brought up, what
mm,
we dealt with, like you said,
mm,
as, young people, and we carry that, and it gets stronger or whatever until you get to a point
mhm,
where it just doesn't fit anymore, it doesn't
mm,
work, and you're like,
mm,
like on Star
mm.
Trek, "The shields are damaged." We need to
Absolutely. And this
Yeah,
is why, as well, purpose-driven women, they tend to struggle more with
yeah,
this. They tend to struggle more with, believing they have to be resilient. How does this come about? Well, maybe you can relate to this yourself. We're used to being the capable one, we're
mhm,
used to being the strong one. So our identity very easily gets tied up with achievement and contribution.
mhm,
Rarely do we actually ask ourselves when we're in that driven place of overgiving, oversharing, over delivering to feel enough. Rarely do we pause to ask ourselves, what do I need? What do I need right now?
yeah,
And the consequence of this is that we tend to abandon ourselves. Women tend to abandon themselves quietly while succeeding loudly.
I like that, yeah, abandon
Mm,
ourselves quietly while we're succeeding loudly,
yeah.
because if we're succeeding loudly, then we don't have to expose all of the things that are really going on.
Absolutely. And it rewards the mask,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah.
Keeps it
Look
there.
how look how successful I am. Look how
Mm,
yeah,
mm,
interesting. I love that. So when,
mm,
when you're working with women to help them understand, to build that emotional resilience and to, understand that power struggle of the mask versus what's really going on and how to, do all of that, um what are some tools that you use, or what are some things that people can have a better under to help them, obviously, if they can't work with you, how can they start to figure these things out?
mm. Surely. And even if they want to try these tools as an initial idea to get them into that headspace of maybe I do want more, maybe I do want to to really skill up and learn how to remove the mask safely so that I can live a really confident, happy and free life within myself, then yeah, I can share with you certainly some tools, some strategies, some simple ones that your listeners can take away. And in fact, just before I do that, let me just share with you a dedicated page that I have that's called welcome.empoweredmomentum.com. And there your listeners can get some great free takeaways. They can do a quiz where they can understand for themselves, a bit like let's say an audit of their self-esteem. They can understand what their feelings are telling them in terms of that emotional wounding, that buried wounding, where they're at in terms of their belief systems and their communication, what needs are not being met, so that they can begin to just make little inroads into understanding what's really going on behind the mask. They can also actually get a copy of my book. I've published 3 books. And my latest book, From Anxious to Empowered, actually has a free preview that I'm very happy to share with
Oh,
your
great.
listeners too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'll put that link in the show notes as well so
Mm.
that people can
Yeah,
just go
thank
there.
you.
Yeah.
That's great for your listeners to have that. Okay, so how can these high performing women, your wonderful listeners, feel more steady and confident within themselves? Okay, let me share some simple strategies to do this. So the first one is to build some internal safety. So instead of chasing that external control, because life does shift, doesn't it? We know this. It's always moving, things are always changing. So we have to anchor within ourselves, not anchor to outside, not anchor to things that are beyond our dynamic of control. So that when we're anchored within ourselves, we can see more clearly what we have the power to influence and what we can't change, what we can't influence. And that helps us to then ask the question, what helps me to feel steady right now? So, what can I do within me to create that anchor that's going to help me to feel steady right now? So, that might be breathing. It might be, following a nice, steady breathing pattern. I often say to my clients 4-2-8. Breathe in for 4, hold for 2, breathe out for 8. Breathe down to your diaphragm so that you're engaging your belly, not just breathing to your chest. That
Mhm.
in itself is a really underestimated, underused resource that we all have that creates a brilliant anchor within ourselves. Um, Next strategy is to separate the past from the present. Again, easy to say, totally get, not so easy to do. What is key though is to tune into the awareness of this. Because again, talking about responding versus reacting, many reactions come from old emotional patterns that are simply replaying. They're playing back on a loop
Yeah.
because your mind's searching to find, you know, what's not healed. Whenever we want to solve a problem today, the mind looks at what happened in the past as a chemical reconstruct to find out a way to strategize how to cope today. And it's always going to go back to where there's dirt in the wound because that's going to be a block of something that's not finished. So when it does that, it can re-trigger those old emotional wounds. So you get these old emotional patterns replaying, if that makes sense. It might be a little bit
Oh,
complicated way to explain it, but
yeah, it's like a 8-track or, now
mm.
I'm dating myself, but yeah, it's a continuous loop, and like you said, your mind, it's like a Rolodex. There I am, dating myself again. It flips through other stories. "Oh, yeah, here's that story. Let's pull that out
Yeah,
and play that one."
exactly. So it's like a fear of rejection. To give an example, a fear of rejection leads to over pleasing and overthinking because it's looping back round all the time to a fear of rejection.
Mhm.
So a good um, little sentence to maybe say to yourself is, okay, this feels current, but it's often about the past.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, let's throw another one in.
Sure, why not?
S- strengthening your self worth. So we're not talking about self performance here. We're talking about self worth. Actually, getting to understand what you deserve, getting to understand how much love you are actually worthy of, not what you've been told, what, what your birthright is, what the truth is for you, and letting that ripple out into every circumstance. So rather than questioning, am I enough? To actually say to yourself, I am enough, even here, even in this situation, I am enough. Because confidence comes from gently building self trust. It doesn't come from constant success. That's that, outward perception, isn't it? Really, it's that feeling inside that builds the confidence. Because when we trust ourselves, we trust that we can deliver, we trust that we can respond. So it's not, it's from the inside first. So yeah, build on that trust
Yeah.
and simplify the emotional noise as well. Because
That's easier said than done for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely. And it's recognizing these are all like points of awareness, aren't they?
Mhm.
So simplifying the emotional noise really means coming to terms with overthinking creates overwhelm.
Mhm.
So when we recognize that the more we overthink stuff, the more overwhelmed we're going to become. So to bring it back to the basics of what actually matters here, what's mine versus what's yours for me to carry. And
Yeah,
again, this taps back into this self-worth. It doesn't make you enough because you carry everyone else's stuff. If anything, it depletes you because
absolutely.
people lose respect for you, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they walk all over you. They're like, "Oh,
Mm,
that person will go do that thing for me," because they always say yes.
mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's where we come to communicating more honestly.
Mhm.
And again, it takes courage, doesn't it, to
Yeah.
communicate honestly. Little by little, as we gently express how we truly feel, there's less masking and there's more truth. And this then means that gradually you begin to get your needs met. And when our needs get met, our nervous system settles.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
let me maybe wrap up with a three-step reset.
Okay.
How does that sound? Would you like
Sure.
that?
That sounds great. I love it.
Okay. All right. So three simple questions. All right, that your listeners can jot down. Okay, the three-step reset, as I call it. First one, what am I feeling right now? What is this really about? The present versus past. What do I need in this moment? These three key reset questions, they create a sense of emotional grounding that allows you to pause, that allows you to breathe.
Because all 3 of those questions have to do with what's going on right now. So you have to be
Absolutely.
aware of the situation, how you're feeling inside, like you said, and not what's spinning around outside you.
Most definitely, because you're not going backwards, are you? None of us are going backwards. What we're doing is becoming more aware.
Mhm.
When we're feeling unsettled, it's often a sign of growth, not failure.
Yeah.
Now, and I suppose really what I'm saying in all of this is that you don't need to fix everything. You just need to steady yourself, which brings us right back to those beautiful horses, doesn't
I was just gonna say that, so
it?
I don't want it to always come back to the horses, but yes, I mean, it's very, very much the truth, in that where they bring us back into our bodies, they bring us back into the present moment because that's where they live, and that's they live there because they are prey animals, and they have to process
Mm,
everything around them in that moment to know if they're safe or not, and what do they need right then and there, so perfect.
mm. Absolutely. It's like midlife isn't asking us to do more, is it? It's
No.
asking us, as you just said, to come home to ourselves.
Yeah. What do you really want now? You've done all the things, you've pleased all the people, and I think, like you said, it's difficult for women especially to say no, to speak or feel their worth, not their value, their perceived value, but their actual
Mm,
worth. And
mm,
so I love that you're doing this work. I think it's really important, because
thank you.
there's a lot of us in our midlife now, and it's we've lived a lot of we've had a lot of life experience, and
Mm,
I think sometimes we discount that and disregard it because, like you said, there's not that perceived level of success as and I say perceived because, as we
mm,
know, and as we've been talking about, it is about perception, is how other people perceive us. And that's the other beautiful thing about horses. They don't judge us. They
no.
don't. They never do. They're not judging you. They don't care what you wear. They don't care what car you drive,
Mm.
how bad your hair looks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just
There's
back to that trust and connection again, isn't it? It's all about
Yeah,
simple connection and realness, isn't it?
yeah.
Honesty, honesty.
This has been such a, lovely conversation today. I really appreciate all of the things that you talked about. These are all things that I personally work on, with
Mm,
myself, that I've come to understand about myself, and that I also try and help other women understand about themselves and, find a place where they can find their worth. And
mm.
so I love the work that you do. Is there any one last thing that you would like to close with?
I would really just want to repeat that last line that I think I said to you just now that, you know, for your listeners, please, please hear me when I say midlife is not asking you to do more. It's asking you to come home to the truth of who you are, to come home to yourself.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
You're already amazing. You're already crushing it.
Yeah, you are. You're a badass. There you go. To put in my terms.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I will put all of your contact information and the lovely link that you're sharing, for people to go and get some free tips and get a peek at your book, and that will all be in the show notes. Lisa, I want to thank you so much for being here today. And to my listeners, if this has resonated with you, and I'm pretty darn sure it has. If you're hearing things about yourself are coming up while you're listening to this episode, share it with a friend. Share it with someone else that you think might appreciate this information. And as always, I will be back next week with more midlife strategies for badass women. Thank you again for being here, Lisa. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.